Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, depending on where you are, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for our Kandy Technical Fireside Chat webinar. This is our third webinar for our series. Today we're going to be talking about group features and topics and best practices around that, including things such as shared line appearances, busy lamp fields, broadcast paging, and other topics. We'll go over use cases, how to provision, and some tips and tricks on how to use. We will have a Q&A window that you can use to submit your questions. Please feel free to submit your questions, and we have a whole team here. You can see our entire team here actually on video. We're here happy to do this webinar for you all to help you better use Kandy and have it for your partners and customers. And so please feel free to submit your questions, and we'll get to those as soon as we can. And also just be aware that we will send this webinar replay and a copy of the slide deck to you within 48 hours. Our presenters today are Sarah Hughes, VP of Customer Success, and Ted Stutchberry, Chief Field Architect for the Kandy platform. So with that, I'll send things over to Sarah, who will get this webinar started.
Thanks, John. All right, so as John had said, this is what we're going to go through. We're going to talk about call pickup groups, shared line appearances, busy lamp fields, call park, and paging. And we're going to go into great detail on all those. So again, do submit your questions. The team will answer those. As well as at the end, we'll have our Q&A session there. Okay, so there are three types of call pickup, and sometimes people know this as group pickup. And what it will do, anybody in the group, you can have multiple groups, and anybody in the group, you can answer a call that comes in. Now, if you're not familiar what VSC stands for, that's a vertical service code, and that's a code that is in the system and for this feature, but you can find these codes in the end user web portal. You go to settings and VSC codes, and so they're all listed there. So for group pickup or group call pickup, it allows you in that group, you're going to pick up the first call that comes in and to any member of the group. So if 4 calls come in, you're going to pick up that first call that comes in. And again, the star code is *31. That's what you dial just by itself. And this works really good if you're in one group, okay, because you can be in multiple groups. So the targeted allows you to pick up a person. So if 4 calls are ringing all in the same group, if you want to pick up, in our case, Susie Q, then you're going to pick her up over anybody else. So only the call that is ringing on her phone in her line. And the way that you do that is you dial the same vertical service code, *31, but you have to put in her full telephone number. Well, that's quite lengthy, and so we recommend doing a speed dial for that, and we'll go through that. But that's really good when you need to pick up a certain person's call over anybody else. So if Susie goes to lunch and says, hey, Sarah, hey, can you pick up my calls while I'm going to run an errand, then this is how you would do that. Okay, then there's directed. This works really good if you're in more than one pickup group. And what happens is as you create the pickup group, then there is a number that's assigned to that now, an alias basically, a 1 or 2 digit, maybe even 3, depending upon how many call answering groups you have, but it's assigned by the system. And so you'll put in *31 and that group ID. And so in my demonstration here, it's the second call answering group that was created, and so it's group 2. And so I'll put in *31 and group 2, and then I would pick up the sales pickup group over Ted's pickup group. Okay, so if both of them were ringing. So those are the use cases, and let me show you a couple of nuances here. You cannot be in a pickup group and be in a UCD group. And a UCD group is kind of our basic ACD kind of thing, kind of a very informal call routing. And also, you cannot be in a shared line appearance group and call pickup to work. So you may have tried this before, and it's like, oh, what's wrong? Well, they can't be in a shared line appearance group and answer for a pickup group at the same time. So here's how you provision it. It's super easy. Go into call answering groups, and you check the type, or you pull down and pick list call pickup. and then you name it. And so I've got mine executive call pickup or sales, whatever it is. You can leave this number blank, and this is a new functionality that's been added this year, is that you don't have to assign a non-DID, you don't have to assign a DID. What will happen is it'll put in a very, 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 very long number, and it's randomly generated, because you're never going to call it. And I would always pull down this new field called alias status and say enabled. When you do that, then it will assign that group code, okay? And then you choose who you want to be in the pickup group. And then over on the right-hand side, there's the ability to have administration in that as well, maybe in the end user web portal. And then you can set in how big the group size and how many calls that you want maximum to be in this. Now, when you hit save, here's that long number. It starts with 555. It's 20-digit number. And the alias is a 2-digit code that you're going to use with that targeted to pick up one group over another. Okay, so I'm going to show you my demonstration. And my demonstration is going to be, Ted is going to call this number, Susie Q, and I have two phones. I have Mindy Adams and John Jacobs. And I have where you can see my phone. How cool. All right, so this is Mindy Adams. And so go ahead, Ted, and call Susie Q. Okay, and I can hear it. And I'm going to enter star 31, dial, and I've now picked up that call. Okay, so that's one thing that you're, sorry, I'm getting feedback or whatever, that you're hearing the call, you're hearing that go on. But let me show you a couple of things that I've also done on this particular phone. Is I have gone in and created some buttons, okay, and we do that in the keys, so that when you're in a user, you can hit modify device keys, or you can also do that if you're in devices, and you can click through, you can check it, and then go to modify device keys, either one. And so here, I can set up a speed dial, and I can put in the number. Well, as you remember, hopefully, that if you just dial star 31, you're going to pick up any call that goes in that. And what I've actually done is I have three of them. I have the group pickup, which is the star 31. I have the DC pickup, which is the group number of my call pickup group, which in this demo environment is 2. And then if I want to just pick up Susie, then I have the star 31 and her number in there. So if you can dial it again, Ted. Okay, so I hear it, and the directed call pickup is going to call the number on that, and that's going to answer her. That was group 2. All right, and if you'll do it again, if I have 2 pickup groups, right, that's the best way to do it. But if I just want to pick up Susie, I've put in her number here, and her full number went across star 31 and her number, and then it you can mute on your end, Ted. Then it will pick up just her over anybody else. Okay. All right, let's go over then. And again, the star 31 plus the alias that was created. And you can see that once you hit save at the call pickup group, it will pull that in. And you would dial the star 31 vertical service code. And by the way, these vertical service codes are the default, unless you've gone in and requested in the domain creation that these be different. So you'll want to double check them. And that call pickup alias. Now, if you, again, want to add a pickup for just a person, then you could put in star 31 and their full however number digits, or possibly their alias, their extension, and pick that up as well. Okay, so again, speed dial is how you add those buttons to their phone. All right, a couple of tips and tricks and best practices here. One is that, again, the just star 31 is best used by itself when there's only one group that person is in, and they'll pick up any call in it. One of the things that we've also noticed is if you're on a collaboration session, our Smart Office collaboration, and you go in and make a change and modify that phone, it will actually drop you out of the collaboration. So if you're making these changes during the business hours and you think they possibly might be on a collaboration, you may drop them. So you may want to make these changes after hours. And then your call pickup group alias is going to be specific to your own deployment, and you'll want to go in and look at that, turn that on. It can be turned on later, and then use that alias that's set for that call pickup group. It could be 1 digit, it could be 2 digits or more, depending upon how many call answering groups you have created. And like I said, it will not work, although it will let you provision it if that person is in a shared line appearance, which we're going to talk about next group. And it won't let them be a part of a UCD group and a call pickup group. It actually will conflict and tell you in the administration. It won't let you save. All right. Let's go now to shared line appearances. I know several of you are like, oh man, I really want to use shared line appearances, but I don't understand it all. I really want to understand it better. And so let's look at a couple of things here. I guess the big question to ask is how many calls do you need to handle at the same time? If it's one at a time within the group, there's not getting a lot of calls, one is enough, then shared line appearances would probably work for you. If it's the main number and you're getting a lot of calls, then we don't recommend at all to use shared line appearances for that. So here is a use case of using shared line appearance. It's a boss's line that rarely gets called, and of course I can see the status of them on the phone, so I get that busy lamp fields that we're going to talk about in the next section. But I can see, if he picks up the phone, that kind of stuff. But I'm the only admin that he has either, and I say he, could be she. But if it's a boss's line that rings a lot, or if it's the main line, then and you have multiple people needing to answer that, then shared line appearances is not worth it for you. There's another way to do that, and we'll go through that. And especially if you need multiple calls being handled at the same time. Shared line appearance will only let one call go through at a time. Now, it is we do support it on lots of different phones, and I'm going to show you that. And here's what it looks like if you haven't created a line appearance for that user and said it would be a shared line. So I just have one line appearance, and calls come in, and I'm in that shared line appearance for that one boss kind of thing, let's say. It does work across Polycom, Yealink, and audio codes devices. And what you would see on, in this case, the Polycom phone is a call from via Jay Jacobs. Okay, so he is the one that I had a shared line appearance, and this is the admin for him. He's the executive. Okay, so you would see that via if you don't have a dedicated line appearance, a shared line appearance for it. All right, so again, it rings on multiple phones, but the number of calls at a time is limited to one. And because this is not multi-call appearance, it's single call appearance. And the things that you can see, you're going to be able to see lamps and all that kind of stuff, and you'll be able to, the second call, if you're on an active call, the second call is going to go to voicemail for the boss or whatever they have set up for their Find Me settings, okay? And a lot of times people set this up as a second line for, in this case, J, and enable shared line appearance so that it's not taking over the primary line, but that it's a separate line. So again, you do see busy lamp field status, so you know they're on the phone and you know when it's ringing. A good use case is a boss admin, again, one call at a time though, but you can have 6 different people having that line appearance, but you're only going to be able to answer one call at a time across all 6 people, one call. And in or out, And it does support bridging, so that if I am on it and I put it on hold, then he can pick it up. And so there's that functionality. You can forward for it, and you can you cannot be a shared. Well, actually, you can do some of the other star codes and part calls and all that kind of stuff too. And let's look at the different phone models. Now, some of these are end-of-life phones, but you may have one that you want to test this on that might be an older one, some of the G models here as well. But you can see there's a wide variety of Polycom, Yealink, and AudioCodes phones that do support shared line appearances. And when you go in and build it in that shared line appearance, you want to name it, and then you'll select different people. But you have to choose the primary account holder. And that primary account holder cannot be part of a pickup group either. And so the settings here are allowing other people to, so if I put that call on hold and another person has, they need to be able to get it, Susie, to answer that phone call. I answered it, but it really should be answered by another person that's in that shared line appearance group. Then when I put that on hold, it's not a private hold. It can be across others. So that's really what a lot of people use, the bridging and the private hold kind of deal. And you do hear a tone if you enable it when somebody else joins in on that. Okay, so I am going to flip over now to my admin here and log in right quick. And I'm going to get into our test here and go to call answering groups. And I have an executive SLA here, shared line appearance, and I have a few people in it. I have John Jacobs, but I want Mindy Adams, my Polycom phone, to be in this as well. And Jay Smith is the executive. And oh, by the way, he's in Vancouver, Canada, and I'm in Dallas, Texas. So it works when people work from home and remote as well. I do have the private hold disabled, and I have the bridging and all of that. I'm going to save the group, and I'm going to go over to looking at buttons here. I'm going to go to keys, and I'm going to look at Mindy Adams and her phone. What I'm going to do, Polycom wants you to always have the lines first in the list here. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to give her a line appearance. And I'm going to first of all find Jay here. And shared line appearance is disabled. So I'm going to enable that. Okay, that's how you make a line appearance work. And I'm going to put J SLA. Going to save this. And I'm going to check sync the phone. And it's rebooting here. There, you can see the JSLA is a new button. Okay, and if you can make a call to Ted. Okay, you can see it ringing. Okay, you can also see that it's via Jay Smith. If you can answer it on Jay's phone for me. Okay, and now I can see here that he is that he was on the call there. Okay, and let me show you a couple of things with that. So I'll move this over. So if I do not create a button at all, like I just did for Mindy Adams, it would just ring in like this. And my Yealink phone is doing that right now. and it would show the via there. But if I do create a button, then it does the splash that you normally get on calls rather than just this, okay? And I can also see when he's on the phone here, and if he's not on the phone, it looks like this, okay? So again, selecting the enabling the SLA, that only shows if you have an SLA group created and he's the primary. And then allowing them to be in that. And then that's what we just demonstrated is Jay is the executive. I can also come over to my Yay link here. I'm going to bring it over for you to see. And go ahead and on the Yay link, let's see, let me get my camera situated here for you. If you can call Jay Smith again. So you can see it coming through and I can hit answer. Okay, so he's also part of that shared line appearance group, but I didn't give him a button for it. Okay. All right, so now let's go over to a couple of things. The big deal with shared line appearance is it only allows one call at a time. So if I wanted Mindy to answer one call and then Jacobs to answer the second call, that wouldn't work with shared line appearance. And that's where we really want you to look at the next thing that we're going to talk about for that. Again, little fun fact here, I guess, is the primary SLA, like the Jay Smith, the executive in this case, cannot be part of a pickup group. Otherwise, he's not in that list to select as primary. So you may find that, and it's like, oh my gosh, you know, what is it? Shared line appearance is also only in package 2 and above, which is the Voice Premium or Voice Plus and above. The Voice Basic or the Voice Essentials types of users cannot be in the shared line appearance. And what we've found is that most people like the shared, like the line appearances without the SLA, and a combination of the busy lamp field call pickup, busy lamp field, paging and parking lots that we're going to talk about from here on. Okay. So let's look at busy lamp fields. Busy lamp fields are things that will give you indications of when somebody is, they're not on their line, they're active on the phone, if their phone is ringing, and if they have a call on hold. So these are all really important things for a person who is needing to help answer for someone else. And you can create buttons for these, and then we have the BLF capability with the, there's two types here. There's a call pickup BLF, and that one will give you a choice to either have the phone, your phone ring or be silent, depending upon what you want. And when their phone rings, then it's going to reflect the state of their line. So if it's held, answered, all that kind of stuff. And if they're not getting a ringing call, they're not on the phone, you can use that button to dial them. So the call pickup BLF is the one that we really like because it kind of pulls all that together. If you use the speed dial BLF, it's not going to ring, but you can push it and dial them and you can see their status. So again, the use case might be different there. Again, call pickup BLF if you, it kind of does all of it. So you can pick up their calls, and if they're not on the phone, you can use it to dial them. So you cannot have both call pickup BLF and speed BLF for the same user on the same device. So it won't let you put both of them for one user. Okay, so when you go in and provision this, you go in and again, this can be anywhere on the phone. It doesn't have to be like the line appearances in the, one down in that. And so whenever you choose BLF with call pickup, again, that's the one we highly recommend, you can choose whatever you want the label to be on the phone, and then you choose the monitored user. Now, this does not have to be a shared line appearance. In fact, it has nothing to do with shared line appearance. This is somebody that you want to monitor. And you can choose what number, because you could have given multiple telephone numbers to that person. So you may monitor one or the other. And here's where you can say whether or not it's going to ring your phone or be silent. Okay. And then if you want to, so here's a little bit more. You can't have both, the speed dial and the call pickup. And you can also select a button on an expansion module or a soft key. You don't have to choose one of these. It could be any of those. Okay. And this is what it shows on the phone. I named it, Jacob's call pickup. And I can see his status. And then the speed dial BLF, I named it. It looks very similar here. It's got a little person on the Polycom and what you called it, but I named this one, and you can see the presence on that as well. So again, BLF with speed dial, you don't get a choice of being silent because it's not going to ring. You're not going to see that splash across the display, and you can name it whatever you want there. And of course, you choose what particular number in there. What we like about the speed dial, and I think the other one you can do that too when they're not on the phone, is that you can combine this with a transfer. And so it's kind of like the DFS keys or whatever as well. So I have somebody on the phone and I need to transfer to that person, then I can hit transfer and hit this BLF call pickup when they're not on the phone and transfer it to them. Okay, you can do it supervised, you can do it blind transfer, either way. And all right, so let's look at that. So I'm going to go over, first of all, I need to go in here and my call answer groups and take out Mindy out of this, okay, and John. All right, then I'm going to go over to Mindy. And I'm going to go to her devices. And I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to make this BLF with call pickup. And I'm not going to do the shared line or anything like that. I'm going to do the same guy, though, John Jacobs. No, sorry, J. Smith, sorry. Starts with a J. And monitored number here. I make it a ringer, accept. Oh, let me go in here. Need to be in the same pickup group. So let me go over here. Yes, my own. Let me get rid of this and remove that group. And now I'm going to go to the sales pickup group, and I need to put J. Smith in there because it's the call pickup, right? They have to be the same one. And let me go to my keys and Mindy again. Okay, go back to this one. BLF with call pickup. J, call pickup BLF, just so I know it. And I'm going to choose ring. And I'm going to check sync. Okay. When this comes in, then Ted will have you call Jay. There it is. Okay. Let's wait just a second for it to finish. All right, can you call Jay? Okay, you see the splash screen for Jay Smith in there. And go ahead and answer it on Jay's phone, and we'll see that. Okay, so we know that he answered it. He's on the phone. If you can put him on hold. Okay, and hang up. See, there's like a red icon there too next to that. All right, call again, and now I can answer that. Okay, I'm going to hit the button, and I've got the call. All right, and I'll hang up, and I can also, when it's not in use, I can use this to call Jay. Okay, yay. All right, so that is BLFs, and a couple of things. Again, remember, it got me. You saw it, that they have to be in the same pickup group, and there are some parameters that you can go in and set in the config files in the device parameters if you want to get rid of the splash screens. The splash screens are what you saw that had all the details about it. If you want that, if that's bothersome, it's set for ring, but you see the splash screens, or maybe silent, whatever, you want to get rid of the splash screens, you can do that. Okay, so if you have any questions on those or want to know what those parameters are, let us know and we'll get those to you. All right, so I'm now going to hand it over to Ted, and he's going to go through Call Park, and you'll be very excited about what he's got. So let me go in, and there you go. Ted, you're muted.
Yep, I'm just pulling everything together here.
All right.
All right, so let me get my my screen presenting here. Okay, so so now we'll go through the call park, and there are two types of call parks, or actually kind of three types of call parks that are available in the system. One is actually a directed call park, and this is really where you're either directing a call to a particular user and parking it to that user, or parking it in a general parking lot that's been defined within the system. The other is that you've got a park to a system number, and here's where you can create a park by using one of the VSC codes or the star codes, and the system will assign a parking lot to you with a 6-digit parking lot number. That can be challenging, obviously, because you've got a 6-digit number to remember and to get over to the person that needs to pick up that call. So really, what we look at is both parking to a user or parking to a lot, and that's what we go through for the most part here. So to create a parking lot, very simple within the system. You go into the calling answer groups. You pull down the parking lot. You give it a name, right? And you assign it a number. A lot of times, or we recommend using non-DID numbers. There's no reason to use up a DID type number for a call parking lot, but you do need a number to associate to that parking lot when you're doing the directed parking. Okay. So the other is when a call is parked, right? That call will only be parked for a certain duration of time. If you don't go back to that call, it's actually going to ring back the user that parked that call. By default, that ring back timer is set to 120 seconds, but you can have it up to 350 seconds and as low as 30 seconds. Now that is actually set on a per user basis, right? So that is actually in your own settings under your end user portal. So when you go into your end user portal and go under your voice services, you can choose your whether you have an auto retrieve timer set and then set that timing accordingly. Okay. So the other is of course when you park a user, they're going to be listening to the music on hold that you have, right? And so you definitely want to make sure that you've set up your music on hold. Well, I mean, they can not hear anything, and that's currently if you don't have any music on hold set up, they won't hear anything. But if you want them to listen to your standard hold music or your whatever kind of media that you have available, you can have that set up, and that can be set up at a customer level, or it can be set up at a site level. So you can manage the media two ways within the administration portal by going in and setting the media, adding the files to the media, and have it set kind of on a global basis. Again, that'll be set for your customer, or you can come into the sites and actually have the media that you've uploaded have that selected on a particular site, and that will basically make that music on hold site specific. So if you've got advertisements and things that you run on a particular site in a particular region, you can have that that regional information kind of put in there. Okay, so vertical service codes when you are actually using parks. A lot of this we recommend that you build into your keys because again these can be really long. But to start with, to do this, it's all based on vertical service codes. So it's a star 26 plus the target DN or alias that you're using to call or to park, and that'll put a call into the parking lot. You will get an audible back from the system saying the call has been parked, so that the call did make it into the parking lot. To retrieve the call, it's star 32 plus the DN. If a call was parked to your number, so in other words, if say I was parking a call to Sarah and it was just to Sarah's number, then she could do just a star 32 and have that call retrieved to her. But if you do a parking lot, then it's the star 32 plus the DN that you want to retrieve the call from. Okay, so there are actually abilities to have, like you're doing two actions. You're doing a park and you're doing a retrieve, right? And what we have actually is, what we provided here is parameters that you need to set up to do the park and retrieve on a single button, saving a lot of real estate. Basically, you're saving 50% of your real estate by not having a park button plus a retrieve button, a park button, and a retrieve button. You can have it all act on the same button in the system. And so what we've done here is giving you the parameters from a Yealink perspective to set up a park and retrieve. And here, Yealink has the park code, has the retrieve code, and here you can just define how you are what actions you're performing. In this case, we're doing it to a parking lot number. This value is set to the parking lot number that you set up within the portal. And so here we'll do a little demonstration of that. So you see I've got my system set up here live. So Sarah, if you'd go call the number.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so here we've got a call that just came in, right? So I can answer the call. So I've got a call from Sarah. And now I need to say send it over to Jay. So I've done a bit of work. So I can actually choose one of the three lots that I've got set up here. So here I've set up 3 parking lots. So I can just choose lot 1. It's now sending that over to lot 1. It told me the call has been parked. I now see an indication in lot 1 that there is a call on lot 1. And actually, if you look over here as well to the other line, you can see that on Jay's phone, where I've got the 3 parking lots, you can actually see an indication there as well that the call has been parked in lot 1. And I can actually now pick up the call over on Jay's line, right, by pushing the button. It's going to do the call. It tells me who is there. So I've got the call from Sarah Hughes, and I now have that call on the other phone. So this is very similar, kind of old school, when you're in a retail situation where you would take a call in and say you need to put a call on line 1, line 2, line 3, because you need it to be picked up in another part of the store, right? Or another part of the warehouse or what have you. So these type of experiences are excellent in terms of just being able to get a call in, put it into a lot, and have it picked up on any phone within your establishment. So it goes back to now you put these things together with things like a paging button, right? And you get a call in, you put it into a parking lot, you page out to you can do a broadcast page out to the store or wherever you're at, and say, hey, call for Sarah on lot 1, right, or lot 2 or lot 3, and so it allows you to kind of mimic those kind of capabilities in that space. Again, this kind of, when you're looking at things like a shared line appearance, kind of doing like a shared line appearance here, if you've got things like call pickup, so I could be picking up a call for the boss. I could put it in a parking lot for the boss. I could conference the boss in just using the phone conference systems here, or I could just page the boss, right, and say, hey, pick up, you got, the lawyer's on line 3, right, and she can give him information before he actually picks up that lot 3 button. All right, so I'll send this out for a second here. We do actually have parameters set up both for Yealink. We've got it set up for audio codes, and we've got them set for Polycom. Poly is still in verification, so we didn't provide it here, but we do. We can share those device parameters for the different types of systems that you may be using, at least for those 3 types of phones. So again, this kind of gets into that single button park retrieve. You basically press the button, you have an indication on that button telling you where the call is parked, and you can go and retrieve that. Oh, sorry, I did the demo a little early. But yeah, so what we had was we had the 2 phones. I parked the call on one phone, retrieved it on the other. So the other is the directed parking lot, right? So here's where you've got the a park retrieve, or sorry, so this is the setup in the device keys, right? So if you're actually having, in the way the device keys works is it's still kind of in that mode of you've got a park button, you've got a retrieve button. You're still getting the status indication, but it's 2 buttons in the system, taking up, twice the amount of real estate than if you had kind of a park retrieve on a single button, right? So that's why we kind of go with, for now, use the parameters. In the future, it's something that we want to do to have a single button in the device keys, but it's not there yet today. But you still have the ability to use to come in, have kind of a call park, and have a retrieve within the device keys. All right, so that's again, this kind of shows you where you put that information into the phone. And it basically does the star 26 and star 32 for you. So now if you got, again, this is something that we don't highly recommend, again, because it is a much harder service to work with, but it is a service that's available. So, if you do get a call in and you want to just use a general parking lot because you haven't set something up yet, star 27 gives you ability to park a call. It does provide you back with a 6-digit code. And you have to provide that 6-digit code to whomever is picking up the call. And so once you dial the star 33 plus that 6-digit code, you'll be able to take that call on any phone that's available to it. So from a tips and tricks perspective, again, we highly recommend using that single button for both the park and retrieve to save real estate on the phone. It really gets you back to that whole, just indicating that there, you got a call on lot 1 or lot 2, and allowing the users to pick that stuff up. And the other is really, there is no need for a DID, so use non-DIDs when setting up those parking lots. So you don't, you're not paying for a DID, just use something that's an internal number only. And with that, we'll set it back to Sarah.
Okay. Thank you. That was great. All right, let me make sure, sorry here. There we go. Okay, so I've got the right screen. Okay, thank you, Ted. All right, so now we're going to talk about paging because these kind of all fit together, as he said. So let's go through the different types of paging devices that we do have here. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is point-to-point intercom, okay? And point-to-point, or some people think of it as push-to-talk, and some vendors, that's how they have it in their programming. But there is a vertical service code for that, and that is *50. Now, that is something that if you want to use this feature, you do need to open up a case and have our onboarding team enable that for you. And recommend having a speed dial because you have to put in their telephone number or their alias in there after it to be able to do that. And the big use case here is that boss and assistant, where maybe the assistant says, you know, boss, your 3 p.m. appointment is here. Used to have sitcoms where, you know, they push a button and, you know, say that. But it opens up a channel on the speakerphone and it auto answers at the destination, but it's a one-to-one. Okay, so think about paging and all that kind of stuff, but that's kind of a form of that, but it's one-to-one. So not a lot of people use it, but it is there. Now, when you think of paging, you think of walking into a building and you have these speakers in the infrastructure all over the place, sometimes even horns. And there is lots of different vendors out there. We're going to talk through the details of this in just a moment, but this is what I call traditional infrastructure paging. You can also use this to open up a gate or open up a door. Different systems do allow that. Okay. And what happens is a person would dial a number, and in this case, I've assigned like a non-DID number to it, and it will connect to that paging unit. And I think, Ted, if you can go on mute there. And then it will broadcast to all the speakers and the horns around that are set up in that paging group, okay? Similarly, though, is a new functionality that is called multicast paging. And we'll talk through this quite a bit. Multicast paging, there'll be a button set up on the phones. In this case, I've set up a soft key. And what it does is these phones are set up to listen to an IP address that this would broadcast out to. And so it uses a lot less resources than the old style of broadcast paging. Broadcast paging in the original implementation around a lot of systems was using basically a big conference, which took up a lot of multiple calls to make that conference and then put them together. So this is basically one SIP call that is multicast across all those. And a couple of things that the big deal here is they have to be on the same network, okay? So we'll talk through this as well. And an example here, you know, for the traditional one is, you know, housewares, you have a call on lot 2 or line 2, like what we were talking about there. And the multicast paging, you could set it up, let's say, for school, and you could say, you know, maybe you only broadcast it to the first grade wing and say, please line up for the first grade field trip, you know, whatever it is. So all of the speakerphones in the first grade wing would ring, or actually auto answer, they wouldn't ring, and they would all broadcast through that. So that means you don't need that overhead infrastructure things, you just use it through the phones. And a cool thing about this is that it actually uses that broadcast IP if the configuration file has it, even if there's no user registered on that phone. Pretty cool. Okay, so let's look at this. In our admin, we've set this up for multicast with Poly, or Polycom, as most of us know it. They have a new name, Poly. And there are a couple of things. If you've played with this, you might not know all the details here, but you want to name it and put in, this is the default IP address for that. As I understand, there's and Yealink supports this too, audio codes, I believe, as well. And but there are 3 channels that are set here by default. And so it is when you're paging, as a person who's initiating the page, you can use channel 1 that would go to all devices. You could use channel 24, and that would barge into any active call. So if you used 1 and the person was on the phone, it would not barge in on that call, okay? If you use the priority option, which would be channel 24, it will barge in on top of a call, okay? Because this is a priority, bomb threat, whatever it is. That might be the emergency one. An emergency one would actually barge in on a call, but it would also crank the volume to max. And so it's super loud. One thing about this multicast paging is that it does not have any license requirements. So you can use this, it's just part of the phones themselves. Because multicast is an IP listening for an IP address, it can't cross into other networks, which means to you that if I have the elementary school kind of thing and I've got, first grade wing, second grade wing, third grade wing, they have to all be part of the same network because it's listening for that IP address and not anything further, not any other subnet pieces. And so that means that same page can't go across to the bus barn and to the superintendent's office and to the intermediate school and the high school and all that. It can only be in that one location. The paging groups themselves that you create up here, where I had new co-paging, this is basically similar to a paging zone that you might have in others. And you can configure up to 23 paging groups with Polycom. I think Yealink lets you do 31. But each phone can only be in one group. And so again, that might be the first grade wing, the second grade wing, the third grade wing, whatever it is. And I would make the names descriptive, even if you have more than one, just so that you know what it is. And the Polycom soft keys, it says paging on it. And if you use Yealink, you can set up that parameter as well. And you can put whatever you want in it. But if you're going to mix these, now I haven't gotten it to work yet to mix with Polycom and Yealink in the same implementation, but they both support it, or actually Yealink says it will work. We haven't gotten that to work yet, and so I wouldn't do it just yet, so wait on that. But anyway, it's a label in device parameters. So these, when you set this in our admin, if you were to export the config file and look at it, it would have the IP address. Now I put 600 in here because I was trying to get Polycom and Yealink to work together and listen on the same port. But you'll see that I set it up. My group name was all page, and 25 and 1 and 24 match up with these channels here, okay? And you see default, priority, and emergency. Those are also labels, and you'll see in just a moment when I show you it on the phone. I have a phone that is not registered, but has a config file as well, so you can see that. Now, the broadcast paging, multicast paging, works with Yealink, as I said, and you can go in and, we've talked about these parameter deals with what Ted just talked about in Park. And if you're not familiar with that, we're not talking about using the web interface into the phone itself, okay? We're talking about using our device parameters, creating a group, and then uploading a CSV file, which you can type all this in, but this Yealink paging here is what I called it. You want that name to match. You have to create the group first and then upload it here, the CSV, confirm the import, and then you need to go sync the phones. And if you sync them one by one, that's fine, but you can go into sites and check the site on the left-hand margin in the list of your sites, and you can sync an entire site, or you can schedule it for later, right after hours. Okay, so broadcast paging here, we are coming close to the time on this, so let me show you here as we're doing this. So on my Polycom phone, I have a button called paging, okay, and I have another phone here that is not registered, okay, and you're going to see it come in as well. So I'm going to hit my paging button, and what you see are those channels. Remember, one is page everybody, emergency is basically barge in, and priority 4 is barge in with high. So I'm going to hit the first one, the default, and now I'm sending this page. And you can see over here what it shows on the display from all page, that's the paging group that I created, and you'll see receiving page. Okay, so it's going through my speakerphone to do that. Okay, and let me end that. All right. So you can see here paging. You choose which one labeled in there. Again, if you change those labels, you can change what it is, and then you'll see it sending page, and you end the page here, and then up on the right-hand side. A couple of things when you receive the page, that it's going to play over the speakerphone. So if you have the headset connected or something like that, it's only going to be on the speakerphone. So it's not going to play it in your ear in the headset. So it's kind of good, I think. And then on the Yay link, so I have it as well. So let me pull that over and show you on my Yay link phone. Okay. And for it, I have I called it, instead of page, I called it paging. And I'm trying to use the port 600 to make it work across both of them, but the paging is done in HD, and you can set the codec on that. That's one of the things to check. Okay, so I would be, it says talking, and then you'll receive it on the other end, and it would be from multicast on that. Okay, so let's talk about paging devices right quick. With paging devices, these can be an analog device. Old school infrastructure's been in there for 20 years or more or whatever. And what you can do is you can put an analog gateway, Cisco ATA, whatever it is in our supported devices that we have. And I would build it as a non-DID because you do not want people to dial this from outside. And you can go in, some of the vendors actually have SIP enabled of these. And so this particular one is a Valcom VIP 821, and it has all kinds of ports on it, but it can be a SIP line as well. And so it's connected up here. Now, just so you know, we don't list out Valcom and Viking and Bogan and all that because they're generic to us. And so we test the ATAs and or the analog gateways that will convert it to SIP. But these are lots of different ones out there, and you choose what makes the most sense, and they're priced according to how many zones they have and the other functionalities. All right, and so if you want KBS to manage the firmware and all that kind of stuff, or manage the device itself, then you'll go in and create it as a generic device. You can utilize our documentation on that, and there's a gateway configuration doc, and you're going to input the MAC address of this box as a generic device. Then you'll go in, whether you did number one or not, either way, you're going to create a Voice Essentials or a voice-based user, easy for me to say, with no voicemail, a non-DID, give it an alias. You want that extension. So here I have called it paging1@trials.com and an extension 9001. And if you want to manage the device in KBS, you can do that. You'll want to connect this device, this user to the device, okay? And so then that person would dial the number, and then they would speak across the paging system and be done. But a lot of those, like Valcom and Viking, they have documents and PDFs that will show you how to set these things up. But I can show you, or we can show you in KBS how to do that. Couple of tips and tricks here. I know we're coming up at the end of time, and we want to answer some of your questions as they've come in. But again, multicast, by definition, it has nothing to do with us. It's how it's designed. It's only going to route within that network. It can't route past other subnets. And so if you're going to combine Polycom and Yealink on that, they need to be configured with the same multicast IP and port and the same channels. Okay, by default, Yealink uses channel 0. By default, Polycom uses channel 1, 24, and 25. So those kind of things. And we'll be putting that information together when we finalize the testing on that. Always use a non-DID here. You do not want people calling in from outside and you know, hacking you or anything like that. Do also consider any type of routers and wireless bridges and that kind of stuff. Some of those actually block multicast traffic, so check that out before you deploy. And the other thing is make sure that your codecs match. If you're going to mix and match Polycom and Yealink or different phones and all of that, make sure that the codecs match in the multicast paging on that. Yealink supports multicast in certain IP ranges to listen in for that broadcast, and so that's the first part of the IP address. So make sure that I think 224 is the default one they use, but you'll want to make sure you're in that range. All right, so let's see, guys, if there's any questions. We'll go ahead and answer those. Ted, if you want to come back on.
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, Dave, what do you got? And Lee?
Well, there were several questions regarding the single button park. So Ted, you want to follow up?
Yeah, sure. So on the single button park retrieve for Poly, we do have parameters in house, as you saw on the phone, where we actually had the Poly single button park and retrieve set up. We do have parameters in house that we are validating right now. So we want to make sure that they are that they work properly before we distribute them. Of course, they are just Poly parameters, so it's something that Poly has put into their 6.0. Can't remember exactly the latest firmware release. But because it's in that 6 firmware release, it is also only supported on kind of the newer Poly sets, the 411s, 511s, etc. On the 500, the VVX 500, VVX 400s. I don't think if the 01s take the new 6 as well. I'm not sure. So it will, it won't work on some of those older models. So it's something to be aware of. That if you want to use it, it's going to be on the 11 series phones and the newer models. So if you can get the like I say, if you can get the 6 firmware on there, you can start using it, and we will look to how quickly we can get the parameter list out to you.
Right, and we can also work in the next. We're going to hit 48.2, 48.3 this year as well. We'll update the Polycom configuration guide with that. We'll have those added.
Yeah.
And also Yealink, to be honest. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, there was a couple of questions regarding, one of them was not being able to see the device management keys or the device keys tab. So the assumption, I believe, is that was in the end user portal. I would suggest going back and watching the August Fireside chat where we really got into device keys and device management, but those are controlled by the administrator as to whether or not they're visible to the end user in the portal. The administrator controls that, so they can enable or disable the end user view of that.
Right.
There was one other question regarding.
So I'm showing on the screen right now here the generic device keys and device key management. If you go into, as the partner, you go into dashboard and customer, select a customer that you're not seeing it on, and look at device key management, make sure that's enabled.
Right, and you can also do that at a subscriber level as well.
Yeah.
So, and then there was one other question about whether or not a PARM set at a user on a user's phone would, or at a domain level, which one would take precedence. And the further down you are, unless it's locked, it will take precedence from the user perspective. So if you set a PARM at a user level that's also set at a SMB or partner level, the user's PARM will take precedence unless you've locked it.
Yeah, and then of course the device keys actually are the lowest level because those are set for a particular phone. So even for a user for a phone, right, that's kind of as low as you can get, and so those would be kind of the highest priority.
Right. Here's your park buttons one.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I believe that covered everything. There were some procedural questions that John answered with regards to viewing the webinars, but I think those were the only technical questions.
Great. Well, I hope this has been of help to a lot of people. I know as you're setting these up, you probably, hopefully it piqued your interest to add them to some new customers or to update existing customers or fix some that might have been unhappy with certain ways they were configured. So hopefully this has been of great value. And of course, we're going to post this and you can replay this again and again if needed. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We are going to be sending out these slides as well because they do have the parameters on them so that you can pull those out. All right.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.